Okay, we are live on YouTube and we will go live on TikTok.
All right, let's see if the technical issues have been solved. Hopefully, YouTube people, you guys can hear me now.
The battle against the microphone continues.
All right. Well, welcome to the live. We're going into the Supreme Court rulings. And a lot of the problem, well, I don't want to say problem, a lot of the trend that we've been seeing in the past few years is that the power is shifting back to the agencies, away from the people. So one particular example is the consular non-reviewability. The situation was this. A U.S. citizen woman wanted to petition her spouse to come over to the United States. The case got denied at the consulate. If that happened in the United States, we would appeal. We would argue that it was wrong. And if that gets denied, we'll appeal again, right? And you'll keep on appealing to have the courts take a look at it because agencies make mistakes. And the way our American democracy, consulate, foreign affairs is set up is that you give a lot of the power to the different individual officers, and that the consular general doesn't really want to step in and overturn a individual's decision, kind of like the jury system, right? The jury decides. But unlike the jury system, when you appeal a case, when a case gets denied and you appeal it, you could go up in the judicial system. But for immigration purposes, at the consulate, when a case gets denied, there's non-reviewability. You can't just file again. You can't just appeal again. Sometimes it's done. As a U.S. citizen, how does that make you feel? Well, a lot of people feel that that's wrong. And so this case went before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court now has to decide the ability of a U.S. citizen to petition their spouse or significant other, or a company petitioning an employee. Is that a constitutional right that the courts have the ability to come in, to step in and adjudicate? Matching that with the public policy of having consulate non-reviewability, having consulates completely under the jurisdiction of the president, of the executive branch, of foreign affairs. The judicial system shouldn't step in to review things outside of the country. Those are two constitutional questions. This Supreme Court in June ruled that consular non-reviewability is much more important. An individual as a U.S. citizen or a company trying to bring a foreigner from outside into the country is not a constitutional right. It might be unfair, it might not be efficient, but it is not a right like the Second Amendment. If you want it, Congress has to put it into the Constitution, right? And so the courts does not have the right to review consular decisions. That is moving power away from individuals to the agency. And we've already talked about, we spent the entire live session last week talking about how customs officers have the authority to now deny lawful permanent residents entry back into the United States. If they leave the country, they come back in, well, maybe I'm only going to parole you in. I'm going to cancel your green card. I'm going to hold your green card, right? And so a lot of that right now shifts again to the customs. Now, customs can say you don't have the right to even apply for asylum. Even if you're showing up in front of me, now you need to use this app. Now you need to use this queue. Now you need to wait a lot longer. Yeah, if it expires, well, sorry, you didn't apply for your asylum on time, right? And so now moving power away from to the agency. You might say, well, I remember there was a Supreme Court rule that allowed courts to have a lot more jurisdiction over agencies. Yes, that was 2 years ago in 2024. It overturned the Chevron defense, which was a huge deal and is a huge deal. Agencies are making all sorts of policies, and in the past, based on Chevron defense, courts have deferred to the agency's logic and their ruling. But now, based on the 2024 ruling, courts can go back and look at their internal policies. Hey, your policy, does that make sense? Is that the correct interpretation of what Congress intended? However, after 2024, in 2025 and 2026, we see a new wave of decision semi-undercutting that policy. Why and how? Well, yes, courts are not going to longer defer to agencies' interpretation of what Congress meant and how they wrote it. However, courts will still defer to the agency's fact findings. What does that mean? Well, when you come in through the border, when you come in through, airport, whatever the officer have typed in, you can't see it, but they see it, they typed it in. That becomes fact. Whatever you submitted, whatever the officer adjudicated, interviewed, and wrote in their notes, those are facts. Let's say you're trying to overturn a case years later, and you say that was an incorrect fact. I want the court to come back and re-adjudicate this case. I didn't say that, or I said this, but they didn't record it, and they now use the faulty logic to deny my case. The courts are saying we're not gonna step in and review the fact finding if it's too long. So that the takeaway from that is when you prepare your case, you really now have to document it because the courts can't save you later on, right? And so all of these Supreme Court decisions, moving power away from individuals and the courts to the agencies, to the people administering. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? That is not the purpose of this live. I'm just reporting what's happening on the Supreme Court rules in various different situations. And now that is what we're seeing. And the trend is going to continue. But I'll take some questions.
Any tips on how to maximize the chance of an F1 interview approval?
How to maximize it? I mean, go to the basics, right? Having applied to a good school, why do you want to go to that school? What professors do you know? What do you want to study? What are you good at? What are your grades beforehand? Why can't you study in another country? Why can't you study in your own home country? What is this big move from your whole family to go to the US? Why? This is a big expense. This is a big investment. Why, right? And where are you going to live? How are you going to support yourself? What clubs are you going to join? Be able to articulate that in English and be able to articulate that well, right? Watch some US movies beforehand to get the accent down, to get the attitude down, right? If you went to an international school, do you have letter recs from different teachers supporting you to go on this, embarking on this huge journey? These are the things that we go over with all of our international students, right? Hopefully that helps.
My wife is from the Philippines, has been here legally for 2 years. It's now time to renew her green card. She was approved, we did biometrics. Now it's been over a month and her green card's about to expire. What should we do to get that green card sent in the mail?
I think you're trying to apply for the 751, and that is going to take maybe 3 to 4 years to adjudicate. But don't worry, because once you apply for it, you'll get a receipt that says your conditional green card is extended for that long. And so with that extension paper, with that conditional green card, it's as if nothing changed. So, continue to live and work and you're fine. And hopefully 3 years down the line, you get that interview, you ace that interview, then you get that new 10-year green card.
Can she travel outside the country or even domestically?
Domestically, so I can't even say domestically anymore. You know why? Okay, in the past, yes. But now Customs is doing these new enforcements where even if you're flying domestically, they can still stop you. Now, you have a green card. If everything is fine, you're fine. But let's say there's a conviction on your record, right? God forbid, there's a pending charge. The current Supreme Court just ruled, 2 weeks ago, you leave the country, you come back in, Customs might not let you in as a green card holder. So it's definitely not safe traveling outside and coming back in if you have problems in your case that arise even after you got your green card. Domestically, 99% should be fine, but we've seen this at Puerto Rico, we've seen this in various parts of the country, in Guam, where entering the territory was fine, leaving was the problem, where they confiscated people's papers. Again, if you don't have any problems, should be fine. But if you do have criminal charges, if things are pending, you get a tax lien, there are certain issues that Customs could be alerted of, your green card could be at stake.
Okay, I want to get into the success story for today. Feel free to keep adding questions. I will take note of them and we'll get to them after the success story.
This green card holder left the United States in 2019. And a series of unfortunate situations happened. Not just COVID in Asia, but The mother fell ill, almost lost her legs. The father had major diabetes and couldn't hear, couldn't walk, couldn't do a lot of these things. It was a very difficult situation that he had to stay back and care for. He was not in the best health condition, and he had to go through a lot of changes himself. Obviously, marriage and the kid outside of the country delayed his return. In any situation, you would think this person have abandoned their green card. They've left the US from 2019 till now, it's 2026, right? 7+ years. 3 months ago, I think early February, March, we did a consultation. I reviewed everything. I said, it's a risky case. I'm not 100% sure you can enter. Let me see your documents. Let me see the things. And I'll do my best to try to talk to the officer for you. We spent 3 months to prepare. We collected all of their tax returns. We collected their property deeds in the United States and all the utility bills paying for their California residence. We collected all the medical documents from the father, the mother, and we prepared everything. And I went down to talk to the officer about this case. 9 years. I know it's a lot. But we've done other 9-year cases. We've done a 13-year case. What do you think of the situation? And the officer was looking at it and said, I don't even recognize this individual, right? The pictures don't line up. He left the US 9 years ago. But the officer was very happy about the tax returns and the US residency and all the medical conditions abroad. And so they said, are they going to be coming back here for good? And I said, yes, right? They are coming back. Their child is a US citizen. The family here, they have a summer camp. They are going to come back. And they have all of these things. The officer said, okay, we'll arrange a date. Let's have them fly in. It's not a guaranteed approval, but based on my experience talking to the officer, seeing the attitude, I felt pretty confident that this could work. I had the client prepare everything, fly in, gave him a lot of confidence, and it turns out he was actually staying at the same hotel as the Iran team for the World Cup, right? So he was staying in the hotel. Margaret and I couldn't get in to the hotel. There was a bunch of cheers. We had to have him come outside, cross the street. Then we picked him up. Then we went to the border. We took his entire case, reviewed with the officer. And you know what? Most of the conversation, on top of everything else we talked about, most of the conversation ended up about how he lost weight, because he lost over like 150 pounds or more. He lost a lot. He looks fabulous, to the point where we almost think, his sexual orientation might not be his actual sexual orientation. He looks that good, okay? The officer was a female officer, reviewed everything, and we were just having a great conversation. And we talked about the Iran team, we talked about Mexico, we talked about what he's going to be doing in the US, the school summer camp. We talked about a lot of these things. It was a quick conversation, but we prepared everything in case to prepare for the worst. But after reviewing everything, the officer said, looks good, looks legitimate, valid green card, welcome in. Now, after coming in, was stopped again at the other customs to check his luggage because, again, he had a lot of fitness equipment, opened everything, reviewed everything. Again, it was good. Then we came in, right? But long story short, the client left the US for 9 years. Any other port of entry was almost guaranteed that his green card would be confiscated. He would have to go to deferred inspection. He would be inspected, ad infinitum, right? But we spent 3 months to collect everything. I went down, I was able to review with the officer, and we got the good sense that this case could be approved. And so we had the client come in, then we reviewed everything together. We came in, we talked to the officer, and it was a good conversation. We prepared for the worst, but we've done like 300 of these cases already. And so we kind of know what the officers are looking for. And again, the officers are looking for home ties, reasons abroad, and just your attitude, right? How you explain yourself. And the fact that we already had the summer camp stuff planned, the wife, the kids, all based in the US, husband coming in, the work, the tax returns, the job, the security, the finances. It's like this individual did not abandon the green card, even though the time was extremely long. We get it. It's over 180 days. It's over a year. The reentry permit expired. Everything is. We get it. But there were these reasons. Will you accept it? And he was seeking admission, but he was let in. And so I just want to share that story. Again, it's one of those things where even in this administration, even though the Supreme Court just landed that ruling that everybody is essentially seeking admission at the border, and they have a lot of latitude and discretion, but that cuts both ways, right? Everybody's seeking admission now. So who are they going to let in? Or are they going to just kick everybody out? They're still looking at the individual. They're still looking at you. Are you a plus for the United States, or are you a minus, right? And so given the family background, given the property, given the arguments that we were able to prepare, the officer was okay with them coming in. And so just want to share that story. Shadow did a great job preparing this case. The client is extremely happy, said this is like the best possible solution. And now he's very happy with his family going to summer camp. When the power is moved away from individuals to the agencies, when courts are no longer adjudicating cases and overseeing fact patterns and fact finding, it's up to the different officers. We need better officers. We need better trained officers. We need better paid officers. We need fair officers. We need just officers. And that's one reason why, me joining the American Bar Association's nonprofits, going down, talking with different officers, me going down to AILA, doing these tours, talking to the officers, us being as a private bar, we provide our services to different officers in different agencies. We do these AILA conferences and we invite the officers and we provide proposals to the officers, right? We don't just advise Congress with the policies that we recommend them implementing in the new tax and immigration reform, but we also provide these suggestions to local customs officers, to local USCIS officers on how they should adjudicate cases as well, and the impact it will have. Because a lot of these officers, they don't have a lot of immigration training, especially the customs officers, right? Because if you think about it, what are they? They're trained on wildlife security, right? You don't want to be bringing in, leather and feathers into the United States. That might actually harm the wildlife here. You don't want to be bringing in fruits and vegetables and seeds. You don't want to bring in IP. There's a lot of IP theft, right? And so how do you safeguard everything, right? And they also have to know all the names of all the different gangs and terrorists, let alone all of immigration law, right? They don't have the resources and training. So as a private bar, we provide our services and help so that they can have better guidance, they have better policy to adjudicate certain things, and so that they could become better and just officers. So when they review a situation based on their vast discretion that the Supreme Court now have granted them, that they would make the right choice. That is why we do what we do, and that is the trend of this country. And if you are looking for a job and you are a good and fair and smart individual, I highly recommend working for the government, because the government needs more smart, capable, and they're always hiring, right? Every time I go down, they're doing more trainings, they're doing more hirings. The background check is extremely long, but we do need better officers, right? And again, they're burnt out, they're tired, their vests are heavy, their burden is heavy, they have a lot more responsibility without increasing in pay, but they are doing their best. And we are there to support them. And if you guys are applying to those jobs, I trust you guys are good and you guys are going to get good training. So that's how we make America better together.
Okay, we'll do a few more questions. Good afternoon from beautiful St. Kitts.
Huh?
If I go to the US to study economics, can I work there and live there for 2 to 4 years?
Look into the OPT program. In the past, if you are on a STEM major after you graduate, you can get 1 year of OPT, meaning you can stay and work for 1 year, and then you can extend it 2 more years, so 3 years total, without having to apply for additional visas. That is the case up to now, but that is on the chopping block. The current USCIS really doesn't like that. And so will the 3 years become 1 year? Will the 3 years become much more strict, so you have to apply to each different job and location? These are all high possibilities. But if you're asking just right now, you come here for schooling after 4 years, will you be able to authorize to work? The question is most likely yes, you will be able to, but the how you are able to is going to drastically change. How difficult is it to apply for this occupational practical training, right? So, and then that's already the easy way to stay and work. If you want to stay and work much longer, you have to look into the H-1B, you have to look into the L-1 and the E-2 and all the other different categories.
Is birthright citizenship back?
It has never gone away. It was the same, and the Trump administration used an executive order to try to cancel it, and the Supreme Court ruling said no, that can't be done. Congress has specifically given that right, and so if Congress wants to change it, they will probably change it. I don't foresee it changing anytime soon, but this definitely lays the precedent for USCIS, the immigration agency, to really do a lot to curtail the rights and privileges of citizens, right? So USCIS have a lot of power to change what citizens can do, how they go about doing things, right? What forms they have to fill out, how much it costs, etc. So they can make a lot of the rights and privileges of citizens much, more limited, including denaturalizing people. But people who are just born in the U.S., they still get that citizenship.
Is it fine to travel with travel documents with green card pending from asylum?
We're not asylum attorneys, so we don't have a lot of stats and facts about that. Generally, from what I've heard from other asylum attorneys, if it's a short trip to Canada, Mexico, if it's a short trip to not the country that you're fleeing from, generally it's okay. But if you're going back to your home country, it is generally extremely frowned upon.
I got civil penalty fine, 1.8 million. What do I do now? I have my U visa pending with deferred action.
We don't do U visas, and I don't know if that will significantly impact your U visa case. From my understanding, U visas is extremely lenient in the sense of waiving almost everything that other things can't even waive. So maybe you have a civil fine, but maybe U visa can still waive it. You would definitely want to talk to an immigration law specialist that works on U visas.
DWI, before I got my green card, told the officer at the 485 interview about this, but am I at risk entering the US?
Nowadays, more and more so, because of the Supreme Court ruling, the officer might say you're seeking admission, that is a crime of moral turpitude. And we've had a case earlier, was it this year or last year? No, I think it was last year, where they committed a crime, they got the green card, they traveled for 20 plus years, and then just last year, coming back in, taken, right? Green card taken to detention center, and deported. Family, U.S. citizen. He almost became a U.S. citizen last year, but he missed his interview, So it's just a one step he could have gone, but he just didn't. So, but Customs made that discretionary call. Now, is your situation like his? His was a drug offense, much more serious. Is yours okay? It's going to be up to the officer. My recommendation is have your court disposition prepared, have proof that you've been in the U.S. and a green card holder for over 5 years, and that you are not seeking admission. Right? Try to make that argument, right? And that you deserve to be able to come into the country as a green card holder.
And what are some ways to argue I'm not seeking admission, I belong here?
So if your trip is under 180 days, that will help you, because if it's over 180 days, they have additional reason to say you're seeking admission. So that's one. The second thing is, if your charge is not a criminal offense, if it's a civil offense, you could try to make that argument. If the case has been completely dropped, it's not even on your record, if it's expunged, they don't buy that argument, but you can still try to argue that. These are a few things. I mean, obviously, we need to know more about your case to see what else you can try to argue. You could always use just general equity arguments. I'm a doctor, I'm doing this thing, it's really important for the country, I really need to work, I need to keep my green card, etc.
And yeah, does good moral character arguments, does that factor in here?
Loosely, right? I mean, if the CBP officer is talking about good moral character, I mean, you're way in the deep end, right? Because usually that line of questioning, and when your good moral character comes up in letter Rex, that is at the trying to apply for green card phase. So if that comes up, basically the officer has already considered you are seeking admission, and they are really deciding whether to give you your green card back. So if it comes up, you're really already in deep waters. But do your best to argue, right?
And if the officer does think you're seeking admission, like what does that actually mean?
That just means that they are considering whether or not to confiscate the green card and parole you in, similar to asylum seekers or similar to people who are crossing the border illegally on humanitarian parole. But basically, you become like almost like a tourist again. You lose all the rights and privileges of green card if you're just paroled in, where you have to renew the parole stamp every couple months. It's extremely annoying. So they're deciding to do that or to let you in as a green card holder. That is what seeking admission is.
Okay, that is our time for today. Thank you, everyone.
See you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Okay, we'll end here, and I YouTube.